So, as you know, a miracle is something extraordinary, uncommon, not
Hmm.
regular, not the standard.
Yeah.
So, in your God idea, it should be supernatural. So, this is what I love about this idea of the miracle mentality. If you're a mother, do it with a miracle mentality. If you work at a bank, do it with a miracle mentality. Whatever you do, you should be doing it with a miracle mentality.
Join the conversation and welcome to Inside Voice.
Hello, friends. What can you do when you feel there's just no coming back from what you've been through? Well, my guest today knows firsthand what it takes to change the trajectory of your life. You can leave defeat behind. Acclaimed author, speaker, and life coach Tim Storey is well known for inspiring and motivating people of all walks of life. His new book, The Miracle Mentality, has become a worldwide movement. Quincy Jones calls Tim the voice of inspiration to this generation. He's seen regularly on nationally syndicated radio and television shows, but today he's on Inside Voice. Tim, you are my dear friend, and it is such an honor and it's so fun to have you here with us today. Thanks for taking the time.
Good to be with you. So, I'm a fan of this show in this format. I mean, you've always been good in talk. I'm loving this show, and it's a privilege to be on today.
Thank you, my friend. It's always great to talk with you. We've actually sat and had dinner quite a few times. We love to sit and have Thai food, and
Yes.
you're just a lot of fun to, my husband and I actually met you through Paul, and we appreciate what you're doing. And I just want our audience to really kind of get a feel for who is Tim Storey and what does he do and how can he help me? I mean, tell us a little bit about your background and your story and how it really all began. What inspired you to want to invest into other people?
Yeah, a little bit of my story is as a young person, somebody invited my my father to a church, and we had been raised in the Catholic Church. I was super young at the time. I was only 4 years of age, but they took us to a church called Melody Land Christian Center in Anaheim, as you
Yeah.
know, was a very famous church. And so we started going to Melody Land Christian Center, and we were there for many years. And I got introduced to the things of God, the ways of God, the charismatic movement. And then after that, went to a church called First Assembly of God in Whittier, California. Um, and I just liked church. Like,
Mm.
I was the kid that when they took me to Sunday school, I believed the stories.
Yeah.
Noah built the ark. I'm like, okay.
Right.
Jonah got swallowed up. All right.
Come on. Yeah.
So even though I liked sports and I liked humor, I really got into the things of God, Brenda, at an early age. And I feel
Mm.
like God just started showing me at an early age that I was going to somehow, some way, help lift people up. That's always been my personality.
And wasn't there a time in your life when there was a teacher that really made an impact and kind of ignited a fire that, in my opinion, that was something that really changed your outlook? What happened there with that teacher?
Yeah, what was this is so awesome about like teachers. So my mother was very distracted because she had 5 children and she worked at a place called Winchell's Donut Shop. Have you ever heard of
Oh,
Winchell's?
wow. Oh, of course.
And so she was just very distracted. So in my house, I never heard anything about like any of us are going to try to go to college or there was just no talk about things like that. It was kind of like surviving and getting from one place to the next. But there was a teacher in 6th grade that said to me, Timmy, can you stay after class? And I'll never forget, Brenda, it was at the end of school. And the whole class went like, ooh, like he's probably in trouble. So the teacher said to me, he says, Timmy, he says, I think you are. And I love this story because I really didn't know what he was going to say next. I think you are a good dancer because I saw that he was at the dance contest and I won. You're a good basketball player because he would go to the games. He goes, I think you are brilliant. And because you are brilliant, I want to see if you want to start checking out books from my personal library. Wow. To think that this 6th grade teacher branded me brilliant I'd never heard that word come towards me. And I just took it and I just put it on me. I didn't know everything it meant, but I took what he said and I labeled myself what this man said. Yeah.
That's incredible. And, what a good word, both for moms who have a lot of kids and they're concerned about, my time is so spread out and spread so thin. But, I think if you pray for your kids, God has a way of investing in their future and changing the narrative sometimes. And what a good word for teachers right now, because, the statistics are really on the rise for kids that are dealing with anxiety at the level that businessmen were dealing with back in the 60s, Tim.
Yeah. But I like what you just said because for all of you that are watching that have children, sometimes it gets overwhelming because we're competing with the iPhone and TikTok and Instagram and all the other things on social media. But to think, as you said, that God can use people we don't expect sometimes, like my teacher, to really be used by God to brand me brilliant, and then to take me on a journey. Because I remember he gave me 3 options of books to read, and I read one on the life of Michelangelo. And one would say, well, why was that so interesting? Because I read about this guy who was very normal, who had a lot of challenges, but he had something within him that he knew he was supposed to do something fantastic. So I begin to relate to people like that.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, so your life, obviously you had a journey, you've had your highs and your lows, your successes and your failures, and through all of that, you have been equipped to learn how to, I guess, deal with, those narratives that want to keep you spiraling downward, and be able to make those comebacks, be able to come back even stronger than you were before because you've learned something. Is that correct?
No doubt about it. As I have become older in Christianity, I have found that really there's nobody that's ever walked the planet that has not had setbacks. And as you know, Ecclesiastes chapter 3 says there's a time and a season for everything. And then it says there's a time to be silent and a time to speak, a time to tear and a time to mend. Now, I've had the times of silence where I feel at times I silence myself, maybe by choices that I made, I silenced myself. But there were times where it seemed like life just silenced me, like tragedies happened, people dying in my family, etc. But how about this thing about there's a time to tear and a time to mend? And I think so many people, they count themselves out way too early, just way too early, that maybe you went through a divorce in your early 30s, or maybe you had some type of financial setback in your 40s. But the beautiful thing is that God truly is the author and the finisher of our faith.
Come on.
And Brenda, as you teach all the time, he designed us to finish strong. So, this Tim Storey journey, I thought it'd be a lot easier than it is, because I'm quite into humor and I enjoy life. I've always just been a happy kid, but I've been through some turmoil. But I tell you, it's made me a more empathetic person. And I would say to you as a friend, I'm more at peace than I've ever been in my entire life.
I love that. Yeah. And I can certainly relate. And, I'm a firm believer that we don't get the beauty without the pain. There's no such thing as, the kind of beauty that everyone seems to be seeking after is really kind of it's deceptive. It's seductive, but it's deceptive because we don't like the idea of suffering. We don't like the idea of having to go through something. We want to go over it, around it, and avoid all that. But the truth really is that the things that, if we take that pain and we bury it because we don't want to deal with it, then what we bury alive, we're giving power to. And so there is process involved in healing and in becoming. And I love that you are just such an example that you also have, you're not just keeping this within the four walls of the church per se, even though you are a pastor of a church and you have a wonderful outreach there in California.
Yeah.
But you have really taken this message into the communities that don't necessarily have a faith or have different types of faith. And you've been able to bring this understanding of what a miracle mentality really is. And I want to go there. What is, my first question would be, what's the difference as you're explaining this to people between a miracle mentality and a fantasy mindset? Because I think they're two different things.
Yeah, no doubt about it. In fact, the Bible says, he who works his land shall have abundance.
Mm-hmm.
So the word abundance, as you know, means overflowing, more than enough. But whoever chases fantasies lacks wisdom. That's Proverbs 12:11. I think we live in a culture worldwide that chases fantasies.
Yeah.
I've now spoken in 77 countries. Within 2 months, I will have spoken to 79 because I'm going to Switzerland in 2 weeks and also then to Italy. So that'll be my 78th and 79th country. And what I find around the world is people are chasing fantasies. So you make a good point there. So what I'm looking for, Brenda, is I'm looking for what is the God idea and not the good idea. There's a difference between a good idea and a God idea. So I wrote that book in 1988. So, but once I have that God idea, now I need a God idea mindset. A God idea mindset is a miracle mentality because everything that God is about miracles. So as you know, a miracle is something extraordinary, uncommon, not regular, not the standard.
Yeah.
So in your God idea for you and for my God idea, it should be supernatural. So this is what I love about this idea of the miracle mentality. If you're a mother, do it with a miracle mentality. If you work at a bank, do it with a miracle mentality. Whatever you do, you should be doing a miracle mentality.
Come on. And I think that's probably one of the things that my mom really did right. She always had a miracle mentality. Now, not everything she did was right. I mean, we're all a product of our parents' successes and their failures and mistakes. But, I learned that early on. And I think that's probably, despite some of the pitfalls and the bad choices that I made and the abuses in my past and, some of the victim mentality even, Tim, I had this thing deep down inside. It was those imaginal cells, that God gives to the caterpillar that wants to be the butterfly.
Yes.
It was the thing that wanted to believe. And I said, there's something great that God wants to do through me and in me. But I had to realize that he had to do it first in me before that could really be fruitful and manifest outwardly. You can't give away what you don't have.
Yeah.
And this really kind of brings me to another question I want to throw at you, because I want to talk about some difficult stuff. What is your idea of, what's your thought about how narcissistic our culture really has become and how narcissism really plays into that fantasy kind of a mentality? And how do we break away from that mindset? Because I think we're all born with narcissistic traits. I mean, a baby, everything's about that baby. Yes. But it's really about maturing and having to grow out of those things. Speak to that for a minute.
I think a lot of it is about the type of leaders that we highlight. I remember at 20 years of age going to Sweden, and I went to this large church pastored by a guy named Stanley Schoberg. It was a famous church called the City Church. And I noticed that on the Saturday when we went and did evangelism, there was this handsome Swede. He was about 6'2", and he was passing out flyers with the kids. And I just did not get it. And then I went to a place called the Smyrna Church in Gothenburg, and the senior pastor during this evangelism summer stuff, he was out there passing flyers with the kids. And I just had never seen that in like American churches. And what I begin to see is that the real heroes to me are the Mother Teresa's. They are
Oh, come on.
the Nelson Mandelas. They're the
Mm,
guy that pastors a church of 100 people that still makes hospital visits. And a lot of it is about who this culture has decided to highlight, and it's just very incorrect that just because of so many likes on social
mm,
media or just because you are famous, we've missed it. Let me give you an example. I was speaking to some young people about 2 years ago, and they were from the ages of 18 to 24, and it was at a beauty school. Okay, it was actually at a
mm.
palm school, and I said, "What do you guys want to be when you get older?" And then some said a salon owner, but so many of them said, "I want to be a celebrity."
Oh,
And
wow.
I stopped this one lady, young lady, and I said, "Okay, so when you say that, what do you mean?" She goes, "I want to be famous, and I'm
Uh,
going to be famous. I just know I'm going to be
mm,
famous." And then I said, "In all due respect, why?" She goes, "Just because I want it, and I will manifest it." And I thought, okay, what has happened that now being a celebrity is like some form of a job, which it's not.
mm. Yeah. Or the ultimate pinnacle of success or identity, really. We're talking about an identity issue. It's like one of the things that I had to deal with in my season of just really coming unraveled from projecting all of this success and
Yeah.
doing all of these things that I thought made me feel important. I had to really acknowledge that underneath all that was a big mess. And I had to really understand, well, who am I separate of the things that I do? And I
Yes.
think this is where we have this kind of dangerous ideal in our culture that these people that we kind of worship. I mean, we make shows, around making them idols, and so we've really been kind of trained to think this way, and we've become fractured in our real relationships, and humanity. People are lonely and they're looking at a fake image, something that has been conjured up and created with makeup and lights. And, it's what you see on film is really, it's not real. And yet there's this hunger that people want something authentic, but they keep going back to drink from the cup of
Yeah.
fantasy. And that
Mhm.
just seems to be the word today. But, at that time of my life, Tim, I had built a lot of my identity around being the best singer and performer. I could hold an audience in the palm of my hand, and that was a powerful feeling.
You're known for that. Yeah. I love where you're at, Brenda, because
Mm-hmm.
I watch what you're doing, and you know, we knew you as a singer. Now we're seeing you as a writer. We're seeing you as a speaker. But you also married a very powerful man who I think,
Mm-hmm.
Paul, is one of the most creative guys that I've ever
Yeah,
met
he
in
is.
my life by far, by far. Like
Yeah, he really
not
is the best.
because he can do things from produce, direct. He can
Mm-hmm.
write. He can run an entire studio. He knows how to run a business.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel that one of the things that's happening in you is that you are allowing yourself to evolve into what God has for you now.
Mm.
The
Yeah.
way I teach this is that, the Bible says, for God knows the end from the beginning and he knows what is yet to come. The yet to come means yet to unfold. And that all of us are unfolding. And it's very important that we don't try to direct God how to unfold us in the days to come, in the years to come, because maybe he has something that is a lot better for us. And
Mm-hmm.
so I'm really into my unfolding. I'm into my assignments.
Yeah.
I don't chase anything. I
Mm-hmm.
just truly want to
Good.
do my assignments. And if
Yeah.
my assignments are considered big by some or medium by some, either way, I'm good. I want to do the God idea assignments. That's what I do.
That's powerful. And I think that really means we have to stop comparing ourselves to what somebody over here is doing or this guy over here and start saying, okay, God, what's my lane? Start asking him and leaning into the hard stuff, investing in loving ourselves enough to do the hard work and to say, okay, if this is the vision and the goal that God has placed in me, and these are my gifts, what am I doing with them? So, let's talk about how we get out of the funk mindset where, we're just kind of spiraling and we feel like we're not going anywhere and we need a miracle. But,
Yeah.
What does it take? What are the baby steps even?
Yeah, I have an answer. I think that we learn three primary ways: education, conversation, and observation. So one of the things that's working in your show, like we're doing today, is that we are educating people.
Yeah.
Secondly, they can learn from the conversation. And I mean this. Sometimes we're one conversation away from a brilliant life. If
Good.
you were to look back, Brenda, of so many amazing conversations you've had since your childhood, there are a few that just stand out where you go like, that was a game changer. I
Mm-hmm.
remember one night I was with the great Tony Curtis, who was an actor, and we started eating dinner together like once a month. And, because I was already friends with Charlton Heston, who I think your family knows as well. But I was friends with Charlton, I was friends with Jack Lemmon, Walter Matthau. But Tony Curtis and I were talking one time, and he was talking about fame.
Mm-hmm.
And he just said, Tim, even with making those movies with Marilyn Monroe and all those things I did, he said, the thing I always desired was just peace. I just wanted to be at peace.
Mm.
I just wanted to like myself.
Yeah.
So that was a conversation that touched me. So we learned education, conversation. Last one, observation. I am a pro at watching people and looking for their good, not watching them and looking for what's challenging about them. I observe and then I want to emulate people in things that I see that I
Mm-hmm.
like, whether
Mm-hmm.
it's their style or their manner or they're good listeners. And so I think one way to break out of the funk is re-educate yourself.
That's good.
Secondly, get involved in better conversations.
Mm-hmm.
And thirdly, start observing people that are living a life that is a miracle mentality type of life.
Yeah. Yeah. So good. And I can certainly attest to that because there was that time in my life where I was so absorbed with my pain and my need that I wasn't listening. And, I feel like it was really the work of God to get a hold of me on the inside and say, start living outside of yourself and
Mm-hmm.
invest in other people. Listen more. Don't just be thinking about what you need to say next. And, be there for them and invest in people. And as I began to do that, there was this law of reciprocity and that started coming back to me. That even
Yes.
applies to, if you want to marry someone that really loves you, be the kind of person that you want to marry,
I like
be the kind of friend that you want to have in your life. And, it really is a different way of looking at things, but it works. And so, good for you. I'm just so thankful for the work that you're doing in a community that is, man, this world is hurting,
But
Tim.
Brenda, I say this in from a real clear perspective in life, in a very sober mindset. That
Mm-hmm.
just thank you, God. What a privilege to have God in my life.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you to those people that took me to Melody Land, the people that took me to First Assembly of
Mm-hmm.
God, because God has really done some beautiful things in my life. And even in some of the painful things, some I caused, some I did not, but yet I went through.
Mm-hmm.
I'm okay. I'm okay
Yeah.
with all of it because right when you think you've been through something, man, we hear some stories out there, right,
Oh, it's
of
true.
people that go through so much. So I am a I'm a big advocate of life. I'm a big advocate of eternal life. That we are eternal. We we are forever young.
Yeah.
So I've bought into all this, Brenda.
Yeah. That's awesome. Well, a lot of people, though, they feel stuck and they don't have the ability to really see that. So I think this is where mentoring really plays a role. If you have a voice from someone who's seasoned, like yourself, who's been down that path, who's a pilgrim, a sojourner. And that's what this show is really about, is sojourners who have walked that journey ahead of us and have the wisdom and the insight and the discernment really to be able to say, listen, what you're seeing is so limited. And I'm just going to come alongside you and help you to see it from a larger perspective. One of the things that I like to say is when you see the road from heaven's perspective, the road is not so difficult anymore. And I think
Yeah.
that does give us strength and it gives us courage, right? To get unstuck and to not be living this marginalized, limited life. What does it take? What kind of decision does it take to just change the paradigm?
So one of the things that I talk about in my book, Miracle Mentality, is that for somebody to turn a setback to a comeback, number one, you have to become awake.
Mm-hmm.
And me and you have gone through times in our life where we were like sleepwalking through life because of our pain.
Good point.
Number one, you have to become awake. Secondly, you have to take inventory. And I think that people don't take realistic inventory of their life.
Yeah.
Like,
Mm-hmm.
wow, my marriage is really in trouble, or being
Mm-hmm.
divorced is difficult and I feel shame, or my mindset is not correct, or my body is acting up. So, number one, you become awake. Secondly, you take inventory, but this is very powerful. Then you have to partner with the right people.
Mm-hmm.
And so, again, I'm so glad you have this show because we can partner with you, we can partner with what you're doing. And some people are really one partner away from stepping into this amazing power. How true is that, right? There is power in partnership. So, you become awake, take inventory, partner with the right people. Then the last thing on this, you got to have the right principles. You have to have the right principles in your life. And so, again, that's one reason I'm so glad for the faith that both of us were raised in, because we can go into the principles of God.
Yeah, it gave us a foundation.
Yeah.
And, I really think that there's a corrective work, there's a cleansing work that God's doing right now with the church at large, the capital C church. I'm not speaking of any particular denomination, but
Yeah.
just the church at large. And, the truth is really, Tim, we're living in a postmodern culture now. And so, that changes the paradigm for a lot of people. I think there might be a little denial and lament over that, but, we don't have to be in the seat of power to be able to emanate and resonate what lives within us. It's like being the moon. I heard a song earlier. I want to be the moon that reflects the light of the sun. And isn't that what we do? I mean, we don't have to be talking, churchy talk and being strange. But if we are just people being relatable in relationship, building relationships with people, and that's what you do. And I love that about you because it breaks down the barriers, it bridges the gaps, and it brings people to the table where they can taste and they can see, hey, this is good stuff.
I think it is unique. Like, as you know, I have the privilege of being a very good friend to Oprah Winfrey.
Mm-hmm.
And you got to be a real good friend when she invites you to dinner at her house all the time. So me and her have amazing talks about
Mm-hmm.
life, about fashion, and about God.
Yeah.
And I remember asking her one time, just me and her sitting in her backyard. Like, I said, what is your favorite Christian song? And she said, I Surrender All. And
Wow.
most people would not expect that Oprah Winfrey is going to say that,
Yeah,
because that's a very powerful song. That's about
it is.
surrendering. And I think that so many people can see um, some of the folks that I get to be around. And it's so easy to judge them and say, well, they're not as strong as us, or they also teach some other things. But let's
Mm-hmm.
look for the good in people.
Yeah.
And that's what's working for me. And that's why I've been able to see so many people from that world of being big, big stars
Hmm.
come into a deeper walk with God because I'm patient with him. But then again,
Right.
Jesus has been very patient with all of us.
Incredible. One of the things that I felt like God really impressed upon my heart is that, I might be sitting on a plane, per se, uh, at this grocery store or somewhere, and I might bump into somebody that's different from me. And I can tell culturally, I can tell just their values are different than mine. But what I began to do is to look for the image of God. It's in every human being. And that's what I want our viewers to hear today. Tim, in the next 30 seconds, I want you to encourage somebody who's listening right now. They're feeling defeated. Just give them an encouraging word.
Yes, I really like this one that I've been saying for years. You may not be what you want to be, but thank God you're not what you used to be.
Hmm.
And it's so
Wow.
easy to continue to look at what I'm not. Like
Hmm.
I'm still not in shape, or my relationship's still not where it was. But you may not be what you want to be, but thank God you're not what you used to be. So
Yeah,
today, let's look about how far God has brought us. He has
good.
brought you so far. Let's concentrate on that today.
That's awesome. You're awesome, my friend. We love you. We want to get together again. Let's do it, okay?
Thank you. And thank you for having me on, and congratulations on everything you're doing with this show.
Thank you so much. Well, friends, I appreciate you for taking time to be with us today. And I know that you've been sparked with encouragement, and maybe you just have vision for your future. Reach out, call Tim. I think he can help you because you, my friend, are worth it. You have a purpose in this life, and you can come back from anything that you've been through. Thanks for being here. Until next time, I'm Brenda Crouch.